Let's have a nice cup of TRE in the afternoon with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Brad Yater. He's the only American in history to have managed all three of Belgium's largest gourmet chocolate retail brands. He was among the first to coin the term lifestyle brand by understanding the emotional relationship between consumers and the products they buy. He launched KC Chocolatier, a sustainable manufacturer dedicated to giving back to the cocoa producing regions. His book, Chocolate Covered Money, sounds like something I want to eat, is the secrets of the marketing genius who built the world's most successful chocolate brands. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you for having me, Hannah.
It's a pleasure. Great to have you with us. So most people like or love eating chocolate. How do you go from eating chocolate to working with chocolate and being involved in the business of chocolate?
Well, my first job out of college was as the chocolate buyer at Bloomingdale's. So that's where it all started. And for those of you who don't know, that's a chain of department stores here in the U.S., and we had a huge chocolate department. So from there, I switched to selling chocolate, and it was a very simple transition because I really got a flavor for understanding what motivates people to buy chocolate when I was trying to sell chocolate in a national chain of stores.
Yeah. And there are obviously so many different types of chocolate. And once you kind of know and understand real chocolate and where it comes from and how it's made, you're maybe less of a fan of the more commercial chocolate that we might find in supermarkets.
Well, absolutely. I've specialized in super premium luxury chocolate, which are the assorted chocolates, Belgian style, and the fancy shapes and fillings, and each chocolate is very recognizable and has a specific filling.
Yeah. And how would you explain or kind of justify that this is much better chocolate, why it's more superior?
Well, it all starts with the cocoa farmers in Tanzania. We actually buy cocoa futures a year in advance. So we know every plot of land and we meet every farmer who's going to grow our beans. And that's really where the sustainability comes into play, is that we work with our farming partners on pruning techniques and how to increase the yields so that not only do we guarantee that we're buying the very highest quality cocoa beans, but we guarantee the supply. And the cocoa farmer is making a better living.
Yeah, much better. And also the taste of the chocolate is very different. You know, a lot of the commercial milk chocolates that people might be used to has so much sugar in it, you know, way more sugar than cocoa.
Well, and that's why we actually label a lot of our chocolate bars as single origin chocolate. So we are declaring on the label where the cocoa was grown: Tanzania, Costa Rica, Peru. And each type of cocoa will taste a little bit different based on the characteristics of the soil that it was grown in.
Wow, fascinating. So what's your favorite type of chocolate?
I'm a buttercream lover. I don't know about you. A lot of people in the world eat chocolate with nuts, but I like a smooth, melt in your mouth kind of a chocolate, and also mint, which may not be very popular with you, but here in the U.S., dark chocolate mint is a big seller.
Yeah, that's funny actually. I loved mint chocolate, but my husband really doesn't. He just associates mint with toothpaste, but I love it.
Well, there's an old saying in the chocolate business, there's more chocoholics than alcoholics, because it's a multi-generational product. I mean, everybody enjoys chocolate from the youngest of children all the way to the grandparents. It makes a beautiful gift. So that's really why the industry has taken on a life of its own.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Belgium and running these gourmet chocolate brands?
Well, the first company that I went to manage was Godiva. Godiva had an office in Belgium and a factory, and it still does in Brussels. But we launched an American division in the U.S. And really the secret to the success at Godiva Chocolate was customizing the packaging. You know, in the chocolate business, people are giving the product as a gift. And the box is a representation of the person who's giving the present. So we learned early on that we had to develop ribbons and bows and hang tags and different sizes that were all very agreeable to the American consumer. And that's a very different customer than in Europe.
How do you describe the difference?
I would say that Americans want a value proposition. The box has to be huge. You have to have a tray to spread the chocolates out. People want value for their money. Whereas in Europe, people really understand the quality. The box can convey on site that this is chocolate. You know, there's the famous Balatin, which is a 2-layer box. People in Europe love the Balatin because it sort of reinforces the tradition of chocolate eating. Whereas in Europe, in America, not so much. People want seasonal packaging, and it has to be new every year. You have to have a different collection. It's like the fashion of packaging.
That's amazing. So, it really, with any product, I guess, it really helps to understand your consumer and the market that you're selling to. And you've obviously made a living from doing that.
30 years, the next company I went to was Leonidas, and it was amazing because Leonidas has much more stores. We had 1,500 locations compared to Godiva, only 250. And that brand was much stronger in Europe because it had a completely different appeal. It was seen as the people's chocolate. It was a very aspirational and yet approachable brand. Leonidas is unintimidating, if you will. It's a mass market chocolate, and yet we were able to command a super premium price. That's another big difference, is that in Europe, chocolate can't sell for as much as in America. Americans will pay $100 a pound for chocolate, no problem.
Really?
Oh, well, KC Chocolatier.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's worth it, Hannah.
I'm sure it is. So tell us about KC Chocolates.
Well, my current brand is dedicated to ethical sourcing. You know, we have the Rainforest Alliance certified chocolate, organic chocolate, vegan chocolate. What's happened is very interesting. In the last 10 to 15 years, the chocolate consumer has become a lot pickier, and people want that niche specialty chocolate that they're looking for. And yet they still, if somebody's going to waste the calories, quote unquote, on chocolate, they want to splurge and enjoy the best of the best. So we have to figure out how to allocate the marketing budget to be able to really market and advertise all these different categories. That's the biggest change that's taken place in the chocolate business. Nowadays, everything is about ethical sourcing in the chocolate production cycle. And for example, we use recyclable packaging, and we create about 20% of our own renewable energy using solar panels on the roof. And you have to tell that story on the packaging and in the brochures and on the website, because that's what excites today's consumers. It's a whole new generation of shoppers.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? How that changes and evolves, I'd like to say, over the years.
It's a science. You know, our retail store design team has completely had to rethink the way that the consumer interacts with our flagship stores. Because in the old days, a chocolate shop was fairly predictable. Everybody understood. You'd walk in, you'd pick out the chocolate you want, and you'd leave. Nowadays, there's a balancing act. There needs to be a huge display case in every store so the customer can select their own chocolate and then decide on the box that they want and hand pack their own assortment. People want customized. Just like going out to dinner, you want to order your dinner your way. Now there's an emphasis among the public anyway on choosing the box that they want with their contents, not simply a selection chosen by the factory.
Yeah. And tell us about your Cocoa for Schools charity.
Well, the charity is based in Tanzania. We have feet on the ground, local people actually living in the cocoa producing region, and we donate books and building supplies to put up schools for the cocoa farmers' children to attend. Basically, we pay above market rates for all of our cocoa, and the surplus stays within the community. So we're very proud of our website, cocoaforschools.be. The BE is for Belgium. And there's some great work going on in Tanzania. We're also helping build hospitals and put in charging towers for cell phones so that the children who walk to school from their farms will have a way to be in communication.
Oh, fantastic. And one of the things you look at in the book, a real kind of behind the scenes look at the people who own these big chocolate companies and how they make chocolate. When we're talking about this top level, then gourmet chocolate, are people generally making chocolate the same way, or does it differ quite a lot?
That's really interesting. I don't know if the public would understand that basically all the chocolate making machinery is sold by the same manufacturers. The equipment that we all use is pretty much standardized, health department approved, and the ingredients are the ingredients. It's cocoa and sugar and milk. Our secret at KC Chocolatier is not the ingredients, but the order in which we mix the ingredients. Because if you look at the ingredient panel really on any fine box of luxury chocolates, the ingredients are the same. But our shelf life is about a year with no use of artificial flavorings or artificial preservatives or artificial colorings. We are completely clean ingredients. And that's because we have a PhD in chemical engineering who's running the processes and making sure that our chocolates can be crafted and yet be produced in tremendous volume. We have to keep up with supply. Yes, there's can't have empty store shelves.
No, for sure. You also talk about the celebrity friends of these chocolate makers. Who do you mean?
Well, over the years, I think everybody who loves chocolate has come to our stores, including a lot of the celebrities. In my book, I name names. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg came to our store in San Francisco at Godiva. We sponsored the launch of her movie Sister Act. That must have been 30 years ago now.
Gosh, yeah.
I think our biggest customer of all time in history is Elton John. He was a customer in Miami with us. And yes, he would just back the limousine up and literally drain the store. There's an entire chapter in my book about Michael Jackson. He was the only non-Godiva employee in the world who had keys to a Godiva store.
Wow.
Well, Michael liked privacy and he wanted to be able to bring his kids to the candy store, but not when we were open. So he would come after the store closed. So I never got to meet him. But yes, we would always get a little note on the counter with a thank you because he appreciated that opportunity and he really liked good chocolate.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. Well, it must have been great fun putting this book together, was it?
Took 4 years to write the book. The first version was a straight business book. It was a little bit too dry. So we rewrote it and I did the second version that's been published, and it's much more of a gossip tabloid tell-all. I really peel back the curtain and look at the inside workings and give the public a peek at what goes on behind your favorite chocolate brand. How do we decide which mall to go into? How do we decide which flavor to invent? I mean, when you go to Japan, the customer there wants a completely different flavor profile than the customer in Europe. So, Europeans want their fruit fillings, strawberry and raspberry, but that simply would never sell. In Japan, it has to be macadamia nut and mochi. So, that's what's to me really interesting. The regional differences are profound, and you have to be on top of having some experts in each local market to help guide you.
Yeah. It's interesting, the idea of coming up with new flavors, because you'd imagine by now that every flavor has been done. Where would you start trying to come up with new flavors now?
You're so innocent, Hannah. Little did you know that I dare myself to go to the mall, and I was there yesterday doing my holiday shopping. I'm here in Los Angeles right now, and every time I go to a chocolate store, one of my competitors has invented something new. The other day I saw olive oil and breadcrumbs.
What?
Yes, somebody else had spicy olive oil, spicy chili pepper, which was really too hot to swallow. So I call those experimental chocolates. If we wanted to be really kind and gracious, we could say that those are limited edition flavors. That's a marketing technique to get people to buy now. But the reality is that the companies that I've managed were obliged to the shareholders to deliver certain benchmarks, financial performance. So we had to guarantee consistent results. And the only way to do that is to deliver a traditional chocolate. And your traditional chocolates are truffles, but buttercream, ganache, praline, the standards. And you can assure yourself, if you were going to start a chocolate company today, my recommendation would be stick with the basics because people will always come back to tradition, especially at the holidays.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. You know, people will come back to your vanilla and things like that. A lot of people do love basics. But then things like, you know, when you see like flavors after cocktails, you know, like mojito chocolates and things like that, you know, they've got a certain gimmick to them and would make good presents. You know, everyone has a friend who loves mojitos, and if you saw mojito chocolates, you might think, that's a perfect Christmas present for them, you know. So there's always place for these gimmicks, I think.
It's actually, that's a huge category. Our newest line that'll be coming out next year, I'll preview it for you now. It's the Wine and Chocolate Tasting Series. Yeah, so that's in response to demand from wineries that have tasting rooms and from retail chains, the big department stores and supermarkets who have a wine section. And the public has really gotten into this whole idea of having, you know, wine tasting parties, and the chocolates can be paired with your favorite wine. So the idea now is to have the packaging actually explain this chocolate goes with a Merlot and this type of chocolate goes with a Chardonnay. So that's coming, and that category is exploding right now because really wine is an agricultural product and so is chocolate. If you taste a chocolate from Peru, it's going to have a very distinctive taste compared to a chocolate from Africa, isn't it? That's very similar to the wine business, and the gift basket industry has also really taken on a life of its own, and people like mini sizes. I have a whole chapter in the book about the explosive demand for things like chocolate dipped pretzels and graham crackers and Oreos, any little giftable stocking stuffer items that can be put into a gift basket. People love to give gifts.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of a wine and chocolate tasting evening. Sounds like a dream evening.
Well, you and a lot of other people. And then there's the sugar-free chocolate for our diabetic friends. You know, the no sugar added category just had to happen. And we never did that at Godiva. We experimented at Leonidas, and the ingredients, you know, are tricky, but that's another growing category. And it seems like all the big chocolate companies are getting in on that because there's ways that dark chocolate in particular can be worked with so it metabolizes by the body the same way as a sugar-free chocolate would. The secret is that people who can't have sugar need to buy a chocolate that's 80 or 85% cacao or higher.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bitter chocolate. It can still be a very smooth and delicious chocolate.
Fascinating. It's a great subject. I've learnt a lot, and I'm going to try wine and chocolate and see how it goes down. Brad Yater, thank you very much for joining us. If listeners want to get a copy of your book, it's called Chocolate Covered Money, and it's available on our website, tre.radio. Brad Yater, thank you for being with us on Talk Radio Europe.
Happy holidays, Hannah.
And to you.